By 1968, Elvis Presley wasn't just losing fame, he was disappearing. America is burning. Martin Luther King Jr. has been assassinated. Robert Kennedy has been shot dead in a Los Angeles hotel kitchen. The Vietnam War is devouring a generation. Cities are on fire, and in the wreckage, a new kind of music, raw, electric, dangerous, has taken over the world. The Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Jimi Hendrix, Bob Dylan. These names mean revolution. And Elvis Presley? Elvis Presley means nothing. He is 33 years old. He has not performed live in front of a real audience in 7 years. 7 years during which the world reinvented itself twice over. He has spent those years locked inside Hollywood sound stages, churning out forgettable movies with forgettable soundtracks. Blue Hawaii, Girl Happy, Spin Out, Clambake. Films so hollow that even the people who made them seem embarrassed. His manager, Colonel Tom Parker, has constructed a gilded cage, and Elvis, loyal to a fault, has lived inside it without complaint. But cages have a cost. By 1968, Elvis Presley is a ghost of what he once was. The reviews say it openly. The record sales whisper it. The critics who once feared him now laugh. The man who stood on a stage in 1956 and physically terrified an entire nation, whose hips alone had been banned from television, is now considered a relic, a joke, a wax figure of his former self. And somewhere inside all of that, somewhere beneath the bad movies and the yes men and the gilded rooms of Graceland, Elvis knows it too. The phone call comes in early 1968. NBC wants Elvis Presley for a television special. $1 million. Colonel Tom Parker answers immediately. Of course, yes, absolutely. The deal is done before Elvis is even consulted. Parker's vision is simple, safe, and completely wrong. He wants Elvis in a tuxedo, standing in front of a Christmas tree, singing carols. A gift-wrapped hour of television, something that will not risk anything, because Colonel Tom Parker has built his entire career on never risking what belongs to Colonel Tom Parker. He presents this plan to the special's assigned producer, a young man named Steve Bender. Binder is 29 years old. He has worked in television long enough to know what wasted potential looks like. And Parker's Christmas special is the clearest example he has ever seen. He wants to strip everything away. No Christmas, no tuxedo, no safe harbor. He wants to put Elvis in front of a real live audience and find out what is still alive inside the king, if anything is still alive at all. The two men argue for weeks. Parker insists. Binder refuses. The standoff grows uglier, the air between them thick with the weight of what is actually at stake. And then Steve Binder does something that almost no one in Elvis's professional orbit has ever done. He goes directly to Elvis. The meeting happens at Binder's production offices in Hollywood. Elvis arrives surrounded by his usual wall of handlers. But when Binder begins laying out his vision, something shifts in Elvis's face. The performance of casual indifference he has worn for years begins to loosen. Binder talks about honesty, about stripping away the Hollywood layers, about giving people the real Elvis, not the movie star, not the Christmas singer, but the 19-year-old from Memphis who stood before a microphone and changed the world. Elvis listens carefully. Then he says something that stops the room cold. He says, "What if nobody comes?" It is not false modesty. It is naked, genuine fear. The fear of a man who has been away so long he honestly does not know whether the world still remembers him, whether the connection he once had with audiences was ever real, or whether it belonged to a version of himself that no longer exists anywhere except in old footage and fading photographs. He is 33 years old. And he is terrified. Binder looks at him directly and says the truth. If you walk out there and give them everything, hold nothing back, they will come. They will always come. Because nobody alive does what you do. Nobody ever has. Elvis sits with it. He turns it over. The room waits, and then he says yes. The weeks that follow are unlike anything Elvis has experienced since the earliest days at Sun Records, when everything was still new and anything seemed possible. Binder assembles a creative team that treats Elvis not as a product to be packaged, but as an artist to be challenged. He brings in arranger Billy Goldenberg and choreographer Jaime Rogers. He creates an environment where ideas are welcome and safety is not. The precise opposite of what Elvis has known for a decade. The costume comes from a young designer named Bill Belu. Custom black leather, fitted for a man who means it. When Elvis puts it on and stands before a mirror, the room goes quiet in a particular way. The way rooms go quiet when something important has just shifted without anyone being able to name what it is. Something has come back. But the most important moment of the production happens by accident. During a rehearsal break, Elvis sits down with Scotty Moore and DJ Fontana, the men who were there at Sun Studio in 1954 when all of this began. They start playing together informally. No cameras, no pressure, just old friends playing old songs. Binder is watching from the edge of the room. He turns to his team quietly and says, That is what we are filming. The intimate sit-down segment. Elvis and his oldest collaborators, surrounded by a live audience on all sides, stripped of everything except two guitars, a drum kit, and a shared history, becomes the emotional center of the entire production. It is not polished. It is not choreographed. It is real in a way that almost nothing on American television in 1968 manages to be real. Then comes the question of the ending. On April 4th, 1968, Martin Luther King Jr. is shot dead on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee, Elvis Presley's own city. The assassination presses down on everything. Binder feels its weight in every creative decision. He knows the special cannot end with something small. Not this year, not after everything this country has been through. He goes to songwriter Earl Brown with an almost impossibly demanding request. Write a song that speaks to the fractured, grieving state of the nation. Something that reaches toward hope without lying about how hard hope is to hold on to. Brown goes home and does not sleep. He writes, If I Can Dream in a Single Night, shaped by the cadences of Dr. King's speeches, reaching for the American promise at its most honest and most urgent. When Elvis reads the lyrics for the first time, he is quiet for a long moment. Then he says, This is the most important song I have ever been asked to record. The recording session is legendary. Elvis refuses to sing the song at anything less than full intensity. He records it with the lights dimmed at his own request, facing the wall, wanting only the song and what it demands of him. When the last note fades, the studio sits in silence. Nobody moves, nobody speaks, because something real has just happened in that room, and everyone present knows it. The taping takes place on June 27, 1968, at NBC Studios in Burbank, California. Backstage, in the hour before the cameras roll, the atmosphere is a compound of excitement and dread. 7 years. He has not stood in front of a live audience in 7 years. The people in those seats tonight, they grew up with the Beatles and the Stones. They know Elvis as the movie star, the relic. They do not know the real one, the dangerous one. Elvis sits in his dressing room. The black leather suit is on. Everything is ready except the man himself. His hands are shaking. One of the men who has traveled everywhere with Elvis finds him sitting completely still, staring at the middle distance. Not pacing, not joking, just absolutely still, in the way that only real fear makes a person still. He asks if Elvis is all right. Elvis looks up. For one unguarded moment, everything is visible. The fear, the 7 years of silence, the enormous weight of the name he carries, and the distance between who he was and who he has allowed himself to become. And then it closes. Something resolves behind his eyes. He stands up from the chair. He says, Let's go. He walks through the stage door and into the light, and the crowd goes insane. What happens on that stage on the night of June 27, 1968, is difficult to describe in words, which is perhaps why it has been watched and studied and argued over for more than 50 years. Elvis opens with Trouble, the menacing blues number from King Creole, and within the first 30 seconds, the question of whether the world still cares about Elvis Presley is answered. Definitively, permanently, beyond any argument, they care. They have always cared. The caring was just waiting for something real to attach itself to. He moves through the set like a man who has been starving for 7 years and placed before a feast. He sweats through the leather suit. He laughs when he fumbles a lyric. He talks to the audience the way you talk to people you have known your entire life. Warmly, without performance, without management. Then the lights shift. The sit-down segment begins. The stage dims. Elvis sits in the center of a small square stage with audience members surrounding him on all 4 sides. Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. And he begins to play. He plays That's All Right, the first song he ever recorded commercially. 14 years earlier, at 19 years old. Something in the room changes register entirely. These are not just songs. These are the sounds of where everything began, being played by the man who started all of it, on a night when everyone present is suddenly aware they are inside a moment that will not come again. He plays Heartbreak Hotel. He plays Hound Dog. He plays them fresh, burning through the studio polish, getting back to whatever they were when they were new and nothing was certain and everything was possible. The audience cannot sit still. The sound coming off that small stage will not permit it. The show ends with the lights going low. Elvis stands alone at center stage. The leather suit, the darkness, the silence, the first notes of If I Can Dream rise from the orchestra. What Elvis gives to that song on that night is not a performance. It is a confession. 7 years of silence and compromise and the slow suffocation of real talent, poured back out through a single human voice on a single song about the desperate, necessary need to believe that hope is not a lie. His voice cracks with the effort of it. He is not controlling the song. The song is controlling him, and he has given it permission. In the final moments, the weight of it brings him physically to his knees, not as choreography, not as staging, but because the song demands it and his body responds. He is completely, authentically undone. The final note holds. It holds longer than seems possible, suspended in the air of that studio like something that refuses to end. Then it ends. The studio is silent for 1 single second, and then it erupts. Not quite like applause, more like relief. The special airs on NBC on December 30, 1968. It is watched by 42% of the American viewing audience, #1 on all of American television that week. The reviews arrive like a verdict that was always going to come eventually, once someone gave Elvis the chance to prove it. Elvis may be the most supremely talented entertainer this country has ever produced, writes one prominent critic. The special makes you understand, with genuine sorrow, how much we have been missing. Colonel Tom Parker reads the reviews without comment. Steve Binder watches the ratings arrive and permits himself a single quiet smile. And Elvis Presley sits at Graceland and feels something he has not felt in a very long time, something he had feared in his most honest moments he might never feel again. He feels alive. Within months, he books a residency at the International Hotel in Las Vegas, his first regular live performances in nearly a decade. He records Suspicious Minds, his first #1 single since 1962. He embarks on a touring career that will carry him across America for 9 more years, night after night in arenas full of people who had never stopped caring. They had just been waiting for something real to come back. The wax figure is gone. The ghost is gone. The king has come back, and he came back because a 29-year-old producer refused to let him stand in front of a Christmas tree, because Scotty Moore picked up his guitar in a rehearsal room and started playing the old songs. because Earl Brown stayed up all night in the grief of April 4th and wrote the most important song of Elvis Presley's career, because a costume designer named Bill Ballou made a black leather suit that fit the man who wore it like a first skin, the one that had always been there beneath everything else, and because Elvis Presley, with shaking hands and 7 years of silence pressing down on him, stood up from a dressing room chair and said two words, "Let's go."